Some stories aren't written down in books. They're hammered into existence. They carry the weight of empires, the incredible heat of the forge, and yeah, the sharp edge of history itself. It all begins with the one element that makes everything else possible. Then you have the material that, let's be honest, pretty much built our entire world. And finally, the force that gives it all its shape. Okay, let's dive right in. What we're watching here is a process that connects us to literally thousands of years of human ingenuity, and it's all happening right now in a totally modern workshop. So, what you're actually seeing is the birth of a really complex, layered blade. And this isn't just about hitting hot metal. It's kind of like a form of mechanical alchemy. So here's how it goes. It starts by stacking two completely different types of steel. You've got a high-carbon steel for a great cutting edge, and then a nickel-rich one for that visual pop. They're forge-welded together into one solid block. Then a massive 30-ton press squeezes and draws that block out into these long bars. Now this next part, this is where the magic really starts. Those bars are heated up and twisted, which creates the foundation for that incredible pattern. They're forged flat again to lock everything in place. To make it a real functional blade, it's heated to about 1500 degrees and then quenched in oil, which hardens it instantly. And finally, after hours and hours of hand sanding, the true soul of the metal, it's revealed. And this is what you get. This beautiful, almost liquid-looking pattern is what a lot of us today call Damascus steel. But, as incredible as this whole process is, it's actually a modern interpretation of a very ancient legend.
So that's the big question, right? How did this pattern become the stuff of actual legends? To really get that, we have to look past the modern forge and uncover a secret that was lost for a long, long time.
See, the thing about the original Damascus blades is that they weren't just famous because they looked cool. They were famous because they were made from a material that baffled the world's best smiths for centuries. Okay, so let's break this down, because the difference here is super important. The modern technique we just saw is an absolute marvel of construction. You're layering different metals to literally build a pattern. But the ancient blades, that was a marvel of chemistry. The original so-called Damascus pattern came from something called wootz steel, which was a high-carbon steel made in crucibles over in India. The pattern wasn't built from layers, it grew from the inside out. It was all about the steel's unique internal crystal structure. It wasn't welded, it was cooked. And if you want to see the real thing, this is it. This is the sword of Tipu Sultan, an 18th century ruler in India who was famous for resisting British expansion. Just look closely at that blade. That subtle flowing pattern, people called it a watered pattern. It's not just on the surface, it is the steel. This blade was known for being unbelievably sharp but also incredibly tough, a combination that just seemed almost impossible at the time. These almost mystical qualities, they became the stuff of legend. The novelist Sir Walter Scott described one not as shiny, but as being marked with millions of meandering lines. They were weapons, for sure, but they were also mysteries forged in steel. And this mystique, whether it's from a lost art or a modern master, that's what transforms a tool into a true icon. The story of how it's made and where it's been, that gives it a power that goes way beyond its cutting edge. Just take the story of the Ka-Bar knife. It starts way back in 1897 as just a small cutlery company. The name itself, it actually came from a thank you letter from a hunter who used one of their knives to fight off a bear. But its legendary status, that was forged in the fires of World War II. The company made the USMC fighting and utility knife, and since they stamped their trademark Ka-Bar right on the blade, that name just became what everyone called the knife itself. A true American icon was born. The legacy of the Ka-Bar wasn't just about how well it performed. It became about trust. It was the knife a soldier carried, the one that made it home, the one that got passed down. A connection was forged, not just in a factory, but between a brand and a whole nation's history. So from the ancient wootz forges of India to the modern workshops of master craftspeople, all the way to the battlefields of World War II, what's the thread that connects all of these things? They're just so much more than metal, aren't they? They are artifacts that carry the actual weight of history. The sword of Tipu Sultan wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of his resistance against the expanding British East India Company. It stood for a fight for sovereignty, for identity. And that history, well, it has a tangible value, a very, very big one, as it turns out. Back in 2004, One of Tipu Sultan's swords sold at an auction for 1.5 crore rupees. At the time, that was over 200,000 US dollars. We don't pay that kind of money for the steel. We pay it for the story that's forged right into it. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. In this age of mass production and, well, disposable everything, maybe our fascination with these blades comes from a much deeper need. A desire to hold something real in our hands, something with a past, a purpose, and a real story to tell.